Hello and welcome to the Philippines. In this video, I'm going to discuss a little bit about the evolving travel situation here in the Philippines. After more than 2.5 years of travel restrictions and requirements, uh, things are trying to get back to normal, but a long ways from normal, really. All transportation back in March of 2020, pretty much all transportation, flights, buses, everything, jeepneys, everything was shut down for much of 2 years. And then a year and a half at least, and then slow they started allowing some buses to run and trains to run and a little bit of domestic flights to run. But it was quite limited. The demand was limited and the flight availability was limited. Anyway, here we are almost, more than 2.5 years, not quite 3 years since then. And restrictions are being dropped. Airlines are gearing up to some degree, although it is a process. Airlines have laid off thousands of employees, pilots, mechanics, and parked their planes. And it takes a long time to hire new personnel. The airports, even Heathrow, I think, in London, one of the biggest airports in the world, I believe, stated here a couple months ago that we're limiting the number of people who can come through this airport daily because we don't have the infrastructure within the airport yet to handle as many people as we used to be able to handle. And I suspect that they're slowly hiring people, getting them trained, getting them in positions. But anyway, let's get into a few of the details, or a few of the general details. Anyway, at this point in time, if I give out details today, they can be different tomorrow, obsolete within a week, because additional airlines are starting to, now that the Philippines has said, hey, we're open even to unvaccinated people. Unvaccinated people still need to take an antigen test, have a negative antigen test 24 hours before they leave their place of origin, or they can get it when they arrive in the Philippines. If they get a positive test when they arrive here, if they have a negative test when they arrive here, they're good to go. Unless the only thing I can think, if they looked ill and were required to take a second test, that might be a problem. But otherwise, if you wait to get here to take the test, you would have to do, I believe it's now a 5-day quarantine at a quarantine hotel. This is a motorbike trip I took around Mactan Island about a month ago, and I'm coming from Mactan Newtown, a big development on Mactan Island, and I'm going across the 4-lane bridge back over into Bandawi City to Park Mall area. So if you go to an airport site, and type in arriving flights and departing flights, gives you an idea which airlines are flying and where they're coming from. Korea Airlines, for instance, Singapore Airlines, Emirates, a number of other airlines internationally. And also for domestic flights, you can check the same thing to see where the planes are flying to domestically here in the Philippines. And I think it was Philippine Airlines announced recently that I think next month, they're going to start direct flights to Thailand, to Cebu, for instance. So it is an evolving situation, and you really don't know what's going to happen in the coming months until it happens. You could book a flight and see it get canceled for a number of reasons. You might be the only passenger and they decide it's not worth flying. Storms oftentimes can cancel flights, as they did in this recent storm that we had. It was not a typhoon, but it was an extreme tropical storm, I believe it was called. For moving on to land transportation, you have a number of options. You've got buses, you've got jeepneys, one sitting on the side of the road there. You've got certain areas, you've got tricycles, you've got Vhires, you've got motorbike rentals and motorbikes with drivers, And so the busing situation is similar. They shut down all the buses. They've been slowly adding more bus routes, more buses. So it's an evolving situation. And I think as more and more tourists come to the country, they will start increasing the number of buses on the roads. The newer air-conditioned buses, more efficient buses, have been replacing a lot of the less efficient Jeepneys, but there's still a lot of Jeepneys out here, and you'll find that situation different in different parts of the Philippines. Some places there are many buses, some places there are few or no buses, but you have Vhires, vans for hire, that run just like buses. They have regular routes and cost about the same as a bus, maybe just a little more, and they're 12 to 15 passenger vans basically that can get very crammed in there. They cram a lot of people in those, and especially with everybody with their luggage, there's not enough space in that little back compartment to put everybody's luggage. So oftentimes you'll find yourself carrying your luggage, trying to fit it between you and the seat, which oftentimes very little room there. There used to be a site or two where you could go and find out rates and destinations, origins and destinations for some of these vehicles, and because of such the transition, the evolution of this system as the country is opening up, I have not found, do any of you know of a good site where you can get reliable information? I have not found that at this point in time. You can also rent a car. They've got rental car places here, probably not in the smaller towns and cities. Rental agencies, you can often rent a car and driver. Best way to do that, or one way to do that, is contact the hotels in your area. Very likely they have contact with a car and driver or a van and driver that you can hire for the day or for a few days, take you around. I know there's some of the hotels that even list the prices going various places. Taxis here in the Cebu city area often will quote you 3,500 is a quote I usually get to go north up to Hagnia Port, Maya Port, over to or south down to Oslo, but maybe look at a nearby waterfall as well. So just figure 4,000, around 4,000, which is less than $80 for a long day, basically. There's some areas without taxis. Surprisingly, Dumaguete, very popular with expats, still does not have taxis running over there. So you need to catch a jeepney or a tricycle if you're going up the mountains, the Valencia area, up above Dumaguete. I think about the only way to get up there is either a jeepney or a tricycle or a motorbike, a hobble taxi. Jeepneys are your cheapest form of transportation. Buses and Vhires seem to be pretty close to the same. Vhire might be a little bit higher in price, depends on the road. You've got air-conditioned and non-air-conditioned buses, so make that choice, understand what you're getting into, because those buses can get pretty hot without the air conditioning. I've taken a couple of them. They weren't too bad, but we were moving, so there was some airflow with the windows down. I've had really good luck with the honest taxi drivers here. 99.9% of the time they put the meter on and run it legally. So I haven't had any issues with that at all. There's on occasion during a very busy, like a synagogue where there's a lot of tourists in town, big festival, I've had an occasion where a guy, if they roll their window partway down and say, "Where are you going?" And then I know right away they're going to try to quote me a flat rate, and I've turned a couple of those guys down. Just because I could. I wasn't in that big of a hurry, and the flat rate, maybe twice as much what the meter rate would have been. I know about what the meter rate's going to run these days. Been here long enough. And but if it's a supply and demand thing, if you really want to get a ride someplace and somebody offers you a flat rate, well, for $8 instead of $4 US, you might have to take that ride. Now, I've heard a lot of horror stories in Manila area. I don't know about the other cities, Bacolod, Iloilo, Baguio, Davao. Don't know if you have those kind of issues or not, but here in Cebu City, I have heard a few horror stories. Taxi drivers charging somebody 800 pesos for what should have been a 400 peso ride. So be aware of that. I can go almost any place in Cebu City for 100 to 200 pesos, or even a little less. I can go from Cebu City, uptown area, over to the airport for about 350 pesos, about $7 US, something like that. The majority of taxis here in Cebu City are white taxis, and they go any place and every place, and you can hire them by the day if you want. Take you north, take you south to sightseeing. There are other taxis. There are black taxis, kind of a bigger SUV type, usually, that get a little higher rate. And like I said, if you want to hire a taxi for the day or something special and a driver, contact a hotel, your hotel or another hotel. They usually have contacts with guys with those vehicles, whether it be a van, a larger van for a group, or just a couple of people to take you around for a day. And they might even post the various rates that are charged for those trips. We also have yellow taxis, which are called airport taxis. They're dedicated to the airport. They usually just take somebody someplace and return back to the airport empty, so they have to charge more, just like a truck going loaded one direction and returning to a manufacturer empty. To pick up another load, they have to charge basically both directions, so about twice as much. But as I've said before, when I have spent 20, 30 hours in airports and on airplanes, and it comes to landing in the Philippines, I just want to get to my destination. If it costs me 300 pesos or 700 pesos, after I just spent a thousand on hotels and airplane tickets, it's not that big a deal to me. If you are in the Philippines very long and you travel a bit to other islands, chances are you're going to be on a ferry at some point in time. And sometimes you can get a bus, like I can get a bus in Cebu City, going over the 4-lane bridge over to Mandaue City now. You can get a bus in Cebu City terminal, and it'll take you down south, and you and or the bus, maybe the bus also will get on the ferry, go across over to the next island, which is Negros Island, which is where Dumaguete is, for instance, and get back on the bus, or get on a different bus. Depends on what type of arrangements you made. But anyway, ferry travel comes in various forms. You have the smallest type of, they call them banca boats, the outrigger boats, and they're smaller, but various sizes there also to take you to nearby islands. And those are relatively inexpensive, as are the ferries. From here to Tagbilaran over on Bohol, I think about an hour and a half trip on a fast ferry. A number of different ferry companies that have regular routes, and they're again not the same companies that operate in all the various areas. They're different companies that operate in different regions of the Philippines. Many of these ferries are what's called ro-ro, R-O-R-O, roll on, roll off, and they will, you can take your vehicle, whether it's a motorbike or an automobile or a van, truck. That's how they transport a lot of the freight. The trucks get on these ro-ro ferries and go on to their destination on another island. You have various options on ferries. You have the economy class, the regular class, without air conditioning. Not all ferries, but many ferries have a section that is air conditioned. You pay just a little bit more for that. And I was on one ferry that actually had, I think, business class, much more comfortable seating, and I think a larger screen television if you want to watch television, something like that. Go2, G-O, number 2, is one of the very large ferry companies with large ferries. And I've not been on one of their ships yet. I've been on a Coqueleon, if I pronounce that right, going from Cebu City over to Dumaguete, about a 5.5-hour trip. And that was fairly large. And they even had cots. Many of the decks had cots where you could lay down, and most of the people were resting while I was out taking videos. So we just came across the bridge, and that large building just to the upper left, I believe that is Mayo Medical Center, I believe, relatively new. I did a video in there. In fact, I've got over a 1,000 videos, many having to do with real estate. And what do you get for a condo? What do they rent for? What do they sell for? What do they look like? What are the amenities? A lot of travel videos, cost of living videos, just fun videos. And anyway, check out my channel. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe as well. You will find that depending upon the region that you're in, that your travel options will vary once you get up out of the main towns and off in towards a tourist site. For instance, like we were in Surigao City in northeast Mindanao, and it was difficult to find transportation. There were no jeepneys, or very, very rare jeepneys. Motorcycle taxi. In fact, me and a friend got on a motorbike taxi, and he's got a plank on the front, across the front, and there's two people sitting crosswise up on this plank, going off the both sides of the motorbike. So he can fit 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 6 or 7 people on that motorbike with the extra seats he's built on that thing. And it was through a construction zone as well, part of the way, so it got a little sketchy there for a while. What I have found, Filipinos are very helpful when you ask them, I want to go from here to such and such place, and most of them very helpful. We'll take Jeepney such and such, or no, you go down this street and the bus will stop down there. And not like many places, they have bus terminals here. There's a north bus terminal and south bus terminal in Cebu City, and a number of them in Manila area, I believe. But you don't need to go to the bus terminal. They got security and different things there, because you'll find that when you're on the bus, that bus is going to stop. People standing along the road, several kilometers, miles down the road, many different places, waving for the bus or the jeepney to stop, and they'll pull over and pick people up, drop people off various areas. As far as ferries, there are what they call fast ferries, which are faster than the slow ferries, for instance, and will get you there a little bit faster. The slow ferries, they just were not built for speed, and they take a little bit longer to get to the same destination. I first came here in 2015, and over the next few years I rode a number of buses and a number of Vhires, vans for hire, and they tend to be very, very aggressive. Since then, the buses, at least, I think all the buses are supposed to have GPS and speed limiters. I know I've been on a bus a couple of times, and if they get above a certain speed, the alarm buzzer starts beeping at them. But they used to be very, very aggressive, and then there were a few accidents, and the government kind of cracked down. The Vhires, most of them can be very aggressive drivers, laying on their horn, passing anywhere and everywhere, assuming everybody's going to get out of their way. So understand that ahead of time. And you can get very cramped, especially if you're a larger person, very cramped. Buses as well. There are some buses have more legroom, just like planes. Some airlines have more legroom than others. Travel is really quite inexpensive, most of it here in the Philippines. You'll find during certain holidays, Easter, Christmas, All Saints Day, All Souls Day, a lot of people travel. just like other countries during holidays, a lot of people travel. Therefore, it can be a little more hectic, I guess, a little more stressful if you're the type to get stressed out. Keep that in mind. As far as travel restrictions, at the present time, here in November 2022, a lot of places have dropped requirements and restrictions. As far as I've had a friend that's traveled to a couple resort, Boracay, very popular resort area internationally, and over to Bohol, and said he was not asked for any documentation, any vax cards, anything else, e-arrival information, any of that. Well, he was not an international travel, but he wasn't asked that to get on the ferry or on the planes, and was not asked about that to at any of the hotels or resorts as well. So it could still be going on in some parts of the Philippines, but I'm not aware of each specific case, and a lot of times the official sites are not up to date. What's really happening, they might have some other information. Just off to the left here is the Vhire Hotel, largest hotel outside of Metro Manila, I believe, over 600 rooms. Just straight ahead there to the left is Park Mall, older, smaller mall, but has pretty much everything you want and need in there. Hardware store, grocery store, gadgets. Anyway, thanks for coming along. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.